Hi, we're going to take a look at some water issue notes and look at how water can really start to change the land around us. And water is a powerful erosion agent. So, a quick review from our last set of notes. A divide, remembers that large area that's drained by rivers. So, here are our divides. Everything from here drains into the Atlantic, everything up here drains into the Great Lakes. All of this, where we live, actually drains down to the Gulf of Mexico. We live in a state that has two divides meeting up. If you're here, everything around Duluth will actually flow to the Great Lakes, but everything here in northern Minnesota will actually flow north to Hudson Bay, which is a misnomer. Remember, rivers always flow downhill. They go from high areas to low areas. They can flow in any which direction you want. Do not let anyone ever tell you that rivers can only flow south, because the Nile flows north and the Red River right here flows north to Hudson Bay. So rivers can flow in any direction they want. The only qualifier for the direction they're going to flow is downhill. And you look here, our divide with the Rockies. Some of this drains into like the Great Salt Lake area, in the middle of that mountain area. The rest of it around here and in California actually drains into the Pacific Ocean. So a drainage basin is basically that area that a whole river system drains into. The Mississippi drainage basin covers a lot. The Minnesota is a tributary of the Mississippi. So remember, a tributary is a smaller stream or river flowing into a larger one, the main drain one, that brings it to wherever its ultimate destination is. In this case, the Mississippi's ultimate destination is the Gulf of Mexico. So the Minnesota River is a tributary of the Mississippi because the Minnesota flows into or joins up with the Mississippi and then continues down south towards the Gulf. Gullies are large things that drain our water, but they dry up when there's not rain. Smaller ones that you can't walk in, we call rills. Ones that you could step in physically, that's how I always kind of think of it. If I can put my foot in it and walk on it, it's probably a gully. If it's a small one, it's probably a rill. So large groove channels which dry up after it's rained. So you'll see these by a lot of fields. Sometimes they dig them down 10, 12 feet and they've got gullies around them to drain the field so they don't sit in wet. This is a naturally occurring one that it's great to walk in. You can see lots of cool rocks and things like that because as the water flows down, it uncovers new things. But you do not want to get caught in here in a flash downpour because this will fill up quickly and drain the whole area around it. So gullies are basically drain systems that dry up when it's not wet anymore. So erosion caused by rivers. You can have rapidly flowing rivers that come into a V shape, and you can have waterfalls. Waterfalls are interesting things. Basically what you've got is a rock that's hard enough that it's not being cut, but sometimes they can get undercut. Like Niagara Falls is moving about a foot a year backwards. So in my lifetime, it's about 50 feet farther back than when I was born. What happens is sometimes the water erodes underneath it, so they actually can wear down here, and then gravity eventually wins, and some of this rock will fall down. And some of it, because it's usually really a dense, water resistant to erosion rock, but it can over time wear down too. So waterfalls, when water flows from the hard bottom river to a soft bottom, it can erode away and we can really get a drop in height difference. Again, they can recede backwards, so they can actually move back. Floodplain is that flat land of river where the water can meander any which way, backwards and forwards. So remember, a floodplain is basically the width of which that water can move back and forward. And if something were to fall in here, you remember we get a curve that forms. If it gets far enough, it's called an oxbow. If it gets cut off, it can be called an oxbow lake. And water, as it flows out of like the mountains, can deposit its sediment. So as this water flowed down, as the glaciers melt, it actually took all this ground up rock, and as it flowed down, it dropped it, and you get something called an alluvial fan because it fans out. And so at the end of a river, you can have an alluvial fan, and it could be steep like this, but it can also be really shallow. This is the alluvial river delta. This is like what you'd see where the Mississippi hits the Gulf of Mexico. and it deposits its suspended load. And as it does that, as the water from the river, which is faster moving, runs into, sea level, in this case, it slows down because there's nowhere for it to keep going down, and it runs into this body of water that's already at sea level. So the water slows, and all of the particulate matter that's suspended will start to drop out, and we get the river deltas. Remember, we spend a lot of money dredging the Mississippi River Delta so that we can keep New Orleans as a port city, or that area. This is a small divide. Basically, from here, everything in here flows down here. If you're over here, it's still going to come to this same body, but it's going to flow that way. And if you're on the other side of this hill, it's going to flow, guess what, to the other side. So we call that a little tiny mini divide. There will be pictures like this on the test that you're going to need to identify, so make sure you go through this a couple times, and that you can tell me that this is a delta or an alluvial fan. This is an alluvial fan. This is a river delta forming a fan. You would be able to tell me a meandering stream versus a braided stream. So make sure you can identify all of those things as we go through, which is one of the reasons why I'm reviewing it again now. This is really high-tech name called a stream or a creek, or some people say crick. I guess that depends on what you were raised with. This is a river delta, and here is a meandering stream, and it will find the path of least resistance to the main body of water. And sometimes it will cut all the way through. It's going to go to the path of least resistance. So as it suspends more and drops more, it blocks itself up. This is, guess what? A waterfall. And as we look at this, you could see, if you had enough time, that this whole thing, this rock will be cut down or undermined and drop down, but this will eventually step back. And so waterfalls actually move backwards upstream. Okay, this is a floodplain. This is a river valley. And this stream looks pretty dry and small right now, but it can wander this whole distance. And that's an important thing to know. So if you're ever going to buy land, a floodplain might be great investment if you have things that are temporarily set up, but not a great investment if you want to put a beautiful home and then have a flood come and take it out. In fact, you can't even get flood insurance in some places for floodplains, so make sure you check that out before you buy. This is a fast-moving, steep stream, and it cut a V shape. It's a V-shaped valley. Slower moving streams can actually do something called a U-shaped valley because they get wider. This is your alluvial fan. Here is my stream coming down as it deposits its suspended load, and it goes out into a big fan shape. These are not gullies because it can't step in them, so this would be a rill that I talked about earlier. This I could step in, so this is a gully. Now you can have little rills coming into it, but that's a gully. These are rills. Okay, so we have a bunch of things happening here. We have a river. This is probably pretty fast moving. You can see some of the sandbars, so that's probably a braided stream. But this is a meandering stream, which is technically a tributary because it's flowing into the bigger body. And this meandering stream has had some obstacles come in because we get nice oxbows forming. And you'll notice that there was probably one here. Do you notice it's starting to fill in? Give it enough time and this will form an oxbow lake. And you look here, you can see a dried up river channel, an old oxbow that's been cut off. And eventually these could cut through here, or it could cut through here, or this could cut through and go straight to the river there and bypass this whole area. Remember, water always wants to get downhill the fastest way it can do that. So we've got our braided stream, we've got our meandering stream, we have our tributary flowing into our main body source. And what's this? You should be able to figure this one out. This is a little pooling of water. This is your handy dandy waterfall. This is the river delta, and we're looking at some pollutions. It's an image of pollution, actually, sadly. What kind of stream is this? Is this meandering or is this braided? You should be able to tell me the difference by now. If you don't, you need to be reminded that this is a braided stream. Many channels flowing fast downhill. This is not a braided stream. This is a meandering stream that has undercut some of this, and we've actually had a little precursor to what's coming up with mass wasting, and that is a small landslide. But look, there's actually probably a gully formed in that landslide. And remember, on the outer side, our water travels fast, and that's our cut bank. On the inside, it slows down and deposits a suspended load, and we get a point bar. So the point bar always points to the cut bank. And if you have a big enough cut bank, you can have some big issues. Sadly, that's a lot of erosion that just went into the river. Always be careful where you park your car. Okay, this is a river, and this is a bluff area, and you'll see this house here, and the river's here, and this is just erosion. It's not a really classic cut bank because it's a pretty straight channel right here, but water is flowing fast along here, and these soft cliffs get eroded. So the problem is the foundation under this house right here is solid, and right here is solid, but way down here at the water, it's getting cut out. And guess what happened to this house? Some of it's down here, and it's lost its footing. Look how far back that hill has actually slumped into this. Water is a powerful movement of earth. And farther yet, it just kept collapsing more and more and more. The house went in. This is a classic cut bank. And I don't know if you can see this very well, but right here on this corner, they have a tree trunk holding up the corner of the house as this cut bank comes down. Now, you don't see a lot of water up here right now, but imagine in a really heavy snowmelt time, all the water from up high in the mountains coming down and just rushing and eating away at the foundations underneath this house. In fact, look, you can actually see steps suspended there. This is why you don't build right on a cut bank, and this would be the same reason. This was not built hanging over. This was built pretty far back away from the stream, and they admired it. The problem was the stream moved over time and literally started to move underneath the house. I'm going to show you just a little bit of this. This is what I like to show you is there's some rills here, and it's just nice erosion and deposition. You can see you've got some fanning happening as stuff has been deposited, and you can see some nice like rills, a little deeper one that almost is the form of a gully, but not quite, but definite rills right there. You can watch the rest of this video if you want. I just wanted to show you that there are examples all over of water eroding things away. That is for another day that we're going to take a look at some more mass wasting and some sinkholes and things like that. But for today, it was really just about all the other things water can do, from waterfalls to gullies to rills to creep and water coming in and the cut banks. And just a quick reminder, but please do make sure you can identify those different pictures for the test, because I will have those on the test. Have a great day.